Exciting news for Toronto Raptors fans as we address a weakness in adding in a sharpshooter in Svi Mykhailiuk. So in this video, we're going to look at what impact he can have on the Toronto Raptors this season. Let's get into it. Welcome NBA and Raptors fans to Amateur Sports. This is a channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. That is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. This is a surprise Sunday upload because the Raptors just signed Svi Mykhailiuk. So if you like what you see from today's video and you want more of myself talk about the NBA and the Raptors and videos and content just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show support the channel. You can also check out our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/amateursports for even more content. But let's get down to business for today's episode, talking about the new player on the Toronto Raptors. Svi Mykhailiuk has reportedly signed a 2-year deal with the Toronto Raptors, which includes a player option in the second year. So it's likely that he will be here for 2 years unless it is moved through a trade, because I mean, unless he has a really good season, I can't really see him declining that player option. But reportedly by Shams, there were many teams interested in adding this wing. Svi Mykhailiuk is a 6'7" small forward / shooting guard, mostly playing in the small forward positions. That's what I imagine he'll be doing for the Raptors. And he is known for hitting threes. Now, he's not like the most tremendous three-point shooter, but he's definitely a guy who can knock down his threes at a good clip. And it is no secret that the weakness for the current Toronto Raptors is lack of floor spacing, lack of outside shooting, because we haven't put a big focus on these two-way guys, 6'8", 6'9", who play defense, who play offense, but they aren't always the most talented shooters. So it's nice. Teams really need these types of players who can just sit on the outside, be the fifth man on the floor, in the sense that they don't need the ball to be effective all the time. They can be moving off ball, try to free themselves up for a catch and shoot three-pointer, but somebody like Svi Mykhailiuk can also take it off the dribble in some situations, as we saw when he was on the Pistons earlier in the year. There was one game where he absolutely just torched the Toronto Raptors, and after he got traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, he did start to improve his game. So let's get a little more in-depth on Svi Mykhailiuk. Let's look at his stats from last season. Moderately impressive, 8.5 points per game, 1.7 assists, 2.5 rebounds, but the shooting stats is what needs to be a concern for us. 41% shooting from the field, but a solid three-point percentage at 33%. Free throw percentage could be better, only at 76. But I will say, after he got traded from the Pistons to the Oklahoma City Thunder, his averages did increase by an okay amount. Like, he got better after getting traded to OKC. So we're getting him off the back of a solid end of the season. So the Raptors have brought this player in, and it's a little bit unlike the Raptors to bring in somebody like this, because Mykhailiuk, 6'7", and he can shoot, okay on offense, but defensively, there is definitely something that he lacks. He's not the best defender, and this Toronto Raptors team has easily doubled and tripled down on putting an emphasis on defense, two-way players. Mykhailiuk doesn't quite fit into that category. So I was a bit surprised when this one came up. I did not see the Raptors getting involved with this player, but apparently there were a numerous amount of teams that wanted to bring him in, and he ultimately chose the Toronto Raptors in his free agency, which is a little bit peculiar as well. I suppose that in any sort of interview, any sort of negotiations, the Raptors promised him some sort of role. And I was thinking yesterday when this broke out that this was going to be a guy who would struggle to get into the Raptors rotation, but clearly, if the Raptors have identified him worthy of a 2-year contract, and if negotiations have gone well enough that Mykhailiuk has agreed to come to the Raptors, there must be some sort of agreement in place as to what sort of playtime he can achieve with this team. I was also a little bit confused because, a 6'6", 6'7" shooter on the outside who's not the best defender, well, Mykhailiuk isn't like, an elite sharpshooter. He shoots 33% from three. In his best season, he shot 40%. So he can certainly get back up to that amount. And I can see him shooting above 35%. So by no means is he a bad three-point shooter, but in terms of like the upper echelon of the NBA, not quite in that tier, but you have to pay up for those guys. So on a cheaper contract, this is a good play. But regardless, to get a guy about his height, maybe he's not the best defender, but you sacrifice that. It just reminds me a little bit of Paul Watson, who the Raptors just waived earlier in the offseason. So I was wondering, is this sort of the Paul Watson replacement? I mean, Paul Watson, when he was with the Raptors, had about 4 points per game. Not the best stats. The efficiency is what I'm concerned about. 46% shooting from the field, 47% shooting from three, which is very impressive. Only just over 60% from the free throw line. But, inconsistency was certainly a big part of Paul Watson's game. And that could be down to his lack of playtime. Didn't get the utmost amount of playtime. Wasn't always involved there. You never knew watching a Raptors game if Paul Watson was going to step on the court on any given night. Mykhailiuk was a guy who averaged, about 20 minutes per game plus, especially when he was with OKC, about 23 minutes per game there. So he always knew his role for the night, and that's why maybe they're a little bit more solid stats. Paul Watson is a little bit less of a sample size, but nonetheless a 47% three-point percentage. It just kind of raised my eyebrows as to, okay, how come we're committing to Mykhailiuk over Paul Watson? Because, if we needed that outside small forward shooter, I feel like we kind of already had that, maybe even a better shooter. But clearly, the Raptors have identified something within Mykhailiuk to be necessary for this team to add, especially because, like I said, this is a very uncharacteristic type of signing for the Raptors. They've added in, some other guys who can be these shooters. Sam Dekker has been brought in, but he's still got to earn his place on the NBA roster. Mykhailiuk, based on the contract he has signed, probably going to be involved within the 15-man team on day one. And it's just nice to have some shooting within the team, because the only real shooter off the bench right now is Yuta Watanabe. Obviously, just three-point shooters on the team, but, the dedicated three-point shooters, the guy you want to be your sniper, the only real one that we have is Yuta. And, maybe Ishmael Wainwright can come in and kind of get his three-point percentage to an NBA level, but Svi Mykhailiuk, definitely a guy, a seasoned NBA player who has proven year after year that he can be a good three-point shooter. But we've talked about on this channel the depth that the Toronto Raptors have. So I'm struggling to see exactly where Svi Mykhailiuk is going to kind of fit into place, because starting lineup-wise, you've got Fred, Gary Trent, OG, Siakam when he's back healthy, Khem Birch. On the bench, you've got your guards, Goran Dragic, Malachi Flynn. You move down, you've got Scotty Barnes, you've got Chris Boucher, you've got Precious Achiuwa. So Svi Mykhailiuk doesn't really, to me, fit within that first 10 man, but as like an 11th or 12th man, that's where I see Yuta Watanabe piecing in as well. I can see him being a little bit effective if we do need him. And injuries happen. They always happen with the Toronto Raptors especially. So to have somebody who just brings something different will be nice to have on the roster. I think that, watching the game is going to be a little bit more entertaining, knowing we have that different type of player to come on the floor. But again, the worrying thing to me about Mykhailiuk is the defense, like I mentioned. Last season, defensive rating is a pretty good stat to get a tell on somebody's defense. It's not, the be-all, end-all of stats, but a 115 defensive rating compared to a only 97 offensive rating is a little bit worrisome for somebody like Svi coming into the Raptors, especially knowing what just happened to Matt Thomas in the previous season. Matt Thomas was quickly becoming a bit of a fan favorite for the Raptors. We wanted to see more of him. Every stream that we did a watch party for, we were clamoring, please, Nick Nurse, bring in Matt Thomas, but his defense was certainly a liability, and Nick Nurse could not have that. So clearly they've identified something in Mykhailiuk that he can offer on defense, something that they can use him for. At 6'7", there is a little bit of switchability involved, especially if you can play in the guard position with that height. So if there were some doubts about defense, maybe they have cleared that up, but I'm just a little bit concerned if Nick Nurse is going to be a huge fan of this player, given that he's not the best defender. Now, I feel like your shooter doesn't always need to be a good defender, especially when there are four other good players who can play defense on the court with that player. It's nice to have that one dedicated shooter, and we might have found that in Mykhailiuk. Ultimately, with this 2-year contract, I feel like he's not going to get as many minutes as he was getting with OKC, which is about 23 minutes per game. I feel like he's going to drop under 20 minutes per game, because I do think the defense is going to come into play, or lack thereof. And with the Raptors already having some solid depth, we're not the most top-heavy roster, but we're certainly a filled-out, 10, 11, 12 man. So Mykhailiuk has got to earn himself a position within that, especially with some new guys coming in like Wainwright, like Dekker, like some other players like Champagnie. We really have a fight in camp to earn these roster positions, earn the key roster positions, the guys that are going to have an effect on this team. And the fact that the Raptors have entrusted Mykhailiuk with this 2-year contract showcases to me that if there are any doubts about this player, they have mildly been subdued, because a 2-year contract is a decent commitment. The Raptors don't commit to players that they just don't really want to use. They usually have a plan for the players that they sign. So to me, it's a nice signing. All in all, a nice signing, a solid pickup. It's not going to be that expensive. And like I said, just something different for the team, some extra little bit of shooting that maybe we lacked. It was certainly a weakness of this team to have not that many 3-point threats. So to add in one like this is going to help out this roster. I just hope that the coaching staff can entrust this guy to play. And I want to see what he can do with the Raptors, especially, not playing for great teams last year, the Pistons as well as the Thunder. Maybe playing for a better team who has a better defensive system will aid him on defense and just make him that much more confident going on offense, because we do need him to be, or take a big load on offense in terms of the three-point shooting. So to trust him with that, we also have to be able to use him on defense. I hope Nick Nurse can find a way to piece him in, but all in all, I like the signing. I hope for the best, but I feel like this is more of the 11th or 12th man in the roster, so not a huge impact, but it's just nice to have this sort of player on your bench. So what do you guys make of the Svi Mykhailiuk signing? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that wraps up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you are still here, be sure to hit that like button if you did enjoy the video, where it goes a long way to helping us reach some new viewers for the channel. You can also check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports, or the Twitch Clips channel, Amateur Hour Clips, where we take the best highlights from those Twitch streams. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel on a road to 6,000 subscribers. You could help us get there by subscribing. It would really mean a lot if you did. Other videos by the channel you may enjoy, and always remember, at the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.